Hey guys, just before the video starts, a quick reminder that due to the changes to the YouTube partnership program, your subscriptions are going to be even more important than before. So if you appreciate or like the content, please subscribe to the channel. The faster we hit the 1,000 subscribers, the faster I'll be able to deliver continuous content to you guys. So now, let's move on to the video. Hey everyone, welcome back to Maple Syrup Tech. Thank you for all my subscribers, by the way, for hanging in there. Now, it's been a few weeks since my last video, but it was the end of the school year crunch, and I actually have a pretty big family, so we really had to focus on getting the kids through the end of year. So thank you very much for hanging in there, and in the next few weeks, you'll see all the videos will be picking up, and you should be getting them on a much more regular schedule. So thanks again, guys. Now, let's look at today's video. So today we're going to be looking at the DEEPCOOL FROSTWIN V2.0, which is this beautiful cooler right here. So we're moving a little bit out of the budget cooler range to what I would call a mid-range cooler. My definition of a mid-range cooler is generally one that you can pick up between $30 and $50, and basically budget is under $30. So this cooler I've managed to pick up at an MSRP of $35. However, depending on the region and the availability of the cooler, I've seen it going anywhere all the way up to $50. So we're going to take a look in this video, see if this cooler is worth your time, and let's start with a brief description. The DEEPCOOL FROSTWIN has a twin tower heatsink design, garnished with 4 copper heat pipes. It comes equipped with 2 so-called super silent 120mm fans, one of which is PWM compatible. They have a max RPM of 1600. Overall, this cooler comes in at a weight of 712 grams, making it a pretty heavy cooler. There are no RGB options included with this basic design, and technically this cooler is compatible with all modern sockets all the way up to AM4 and all Intel sockets. However, we'll have to get back to AM4 a little bit later in this video. Overall, the dimensions on the cooler are 121mm wide by 121mm thick and 151mm tall. So let's now go look at the results. Now that we know what we're dealing with the cooler, let's look at a couple of points before we get to the results, because there's a couple of interesting things I want to specify about this cooler. Number one is the box art. Oddly enough, something got through quality control, because the box art actually doesn't call this cooler a FROSTWIN, but a forced twin. So they inverted the O and the R. I don't know if this is present in every one of the boxes, but at least all of the ones I saw on the shelves were inverted like this. So don't be mistaken, this forced twin cooler is actually the FROSTWIN cooler, because when you go look at DEEPCOOL sites, all the materials and everything really specifies that this cooler should be called the FROSTWIN and not the forced twin. Now, in the description, I also mentioned that there was something specific about AM4. Number one is that there are 2 sort of batches of this cooler. The first one actually does not have AM4 compatibility, and you need an adapter kit, which you can get for about $5 from DEEPCOOL if it's available in your region. Sometimes shipping can be quite costly if you're overseas, or if no local retailers are holding the adapter kit, so that's something to be very careful about. However, there's a second batch which normally has a sticker saying AM4 compatible on it. Unfortunately, I can't show you that because mine was, I actually had to buy the adapter kit separately, but there are some, and it says on a gray sticker basically AM4 ready on it, and you know that the adapter kit will be included right away with the cooler if that's the version you're getting. The other thing to be very careful about this cooler, and you should get some images on the screen now, is you have to really check your RAM clearance. If you have RAM with very large heat sinks, or if your RAM positioning is very close to your CPU positioning, you might actually have some issues with RAM clearance with this cooler. Because although the cooler is actually not so tall for a double heatsink design, it is actually quite thick, thickness wise. So yeah, really have to watch out for the RAM clearance on this cooler. That pretty much clears up all the specific points before we get to the results, just so that you guys, know a little bit more about this cooler. So now let's really move on to the exact results. Just before, let's run through the methodology really quick. So all my coolers are tested on my Ryzen 3 test bench system, which is a Ryzen 3 1200 overclocked to 3.9 gigahertz using 1.3 volts. All the coolers, unless otherwise specified, the fans are locked at 100%. And actually this one we run a second batch of tests with the 1 PWM controllable fan locked at 50%. And you'll see there's a really good reason why we run those tests that we'll look at in the conclusion. And also they are tested using the exact same thermal paste on all the coolers, which is basically Arctic MX4. Now, also note for the noise tests, I use a portable sound meter placed about 2 feet above the motherboard, directly above the coolers, which is sort of a worst case scenario where someone's gaming with a tower on their desk and it's the noise coming directly from the cooler that you would normally hear without a case or anything in between. So without further ado, let's get to the temperature results. So on the screen right now, as you can see in the chart, the DEEPCOOL FROSTWIN was performing at 26 degrees above ambient, so a 26 degree delta temperature when both fans were spinning at 100%. And when we locked the 1 PWM compatible fan at 50%, the temperature only rose by 1 degree, bringing it up to 27 degrees above ambient. Surprisingly enough, I was expecting this cooler to be the best performing air cooler that we had so far, but it's actually beaten out by the Gamax 400, oddly enough. So, let's see what the noise testing gave, because so far, like we can see, I was sort of a little bit disappointed with this cooler temperature wise. So let's see if the noise results were it any better. And as you can see on the chart here, noise wise, this is actually a pretty noisy cooler. So for the two fans running at 100%, it was actually bringing the noise up to 51 decibels. Which is not the noisiest cooler, but it's up there. It's among the noisiest coolers we've tested so far. And when I locked the 1 PWM compatible fan, unfortunately the noise only came down to 49 decibels. Now that's principally because one of the two fans only is PWM compatible, meaning the other one is spinning at 100%. So overall, what does this mean for this cooler? I run the test this way with a really specific idea in mind, because unfortunately what I didn't like about this cooler is that they say that this is basically super silent fan design. Unfortunately, as you can see in the testing above, the super silent fan design is really, unfortunately, I don't want to say not true, but it is not among some of the silent coolers we've tested. It's among one of the noisiest actually. And unfortunately, the reason why is because they made only one of the two fans PWM compatible, oddly enough. What that means is that even if the cooler were to spin down because it has a dual fan design, and it actually would need each fan to work, less to basically cool the same as a cooler with only one fan, unfortunately, this cooler can't profit from that because the second fan is basically always spinning at 100%. And although these fans, because they're the exact same fans as the Gamax 300 or 200, are actually quite silent at 50%, the fact that one of the two fans is always at 100, unfortunately, as you can see in the charts, really destroyed that advantage by the fact that the second fan was basically drowning out the one at 50% and keeping the noise almost the same as when both were spinning at 100%. Secondly, for the size and design of the cooler, I was actually a little bit disappointed with the heat results. I was expecting, like I said, this cooler to beat out the Gamax 400. It didn't. So you're getting a cooler that's larger, that can actually cause some RAM clearance issues, and you're not actually getting the benefit that I've done in past testing from having a dual fan design, where you can actually spin the fans a lot slower and get the same results as a single fan cooler, because only one of the two fans, once again, is PWM compatible. So, is this a bad cooler? No, but I just don't see the advantage of going this big in a cooler and possibly causing clearance issues with RAM when you can get better performance out of something like a GAMX 400 or equivalent performance out of a Thermaltake Contact 12, which still for the moment are my favorite coolers that we've tested so far. So overall, the FROSTWIN is not a bad cooler because the performance is okay, but I just don't see why it needs to unfortunately exist in the form it is with only one PWM compatible fan, because you're sort of, you know, taking away its trump card, and at the same time, when it in all-out performance, I sort of think it's underperforming for what this cooler, you know, how this cooler is marketed. It's basically marketed as a overclocking, you know, cooler which is specialized in all that. Anyway, I've said enough. I think you know my positioning on this right now for this cooler. I hope this review has helped you guys, and unfortunately we'll keep testing to see what other coolers we can find that have a decent price and that can maybe go a touch beyond the ones we've tested so far. So do keep tuned for my next videos. I have a really interesting series coming up based around all the coolers you can generally find on eBay. So I'm just waiting for those to come in because they actually take quite a while. So as soon as that comes in, that series will launch. So do keep tuned, and I have a couple of other surprises for you in the meantime. So I hope you guys liked this video. I hope you guys appreciated the review on the FROSTWIN V2.0. And I'll catch you guys in my next video.